Hey, everybody, welcome to the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. It's a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe that through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing we call life. And on today's episode, we'll be concluding our individual Q&A. If you recall the last two episodes before our summer break, each of us had our turn to be asked questions from the other brothers, which, that idea was really just to provide further insight into our thought processes for you, our audience, as well as for each other, to learn a little bit more about each other. Today is Brother Rod's turn to answer 8 questions, and he has not been given a cheat sheet, so he doesn't know what the questions are that will be asked of him. So let's go ahead and jump into this thing. And I guess since I have the mic, and as you've noticed, Brother Byron is unable to be with us tonight, but he did send in his questions, so we'll be reading his as well. But like I was saying, since I have the mic, I'll go ahead and start, I guess. My first question is, how do you define beauty?
How do you define beauty?
Yes.
So for me, uh, beauty is defined for me based on what you as an individual values, right? The whole term beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Because what might be considered beautiful to one may not be to another. So I defined it as seeing things through your own lenses and placing a value on it based on who you are, the culmination of your experiences and your values. Uh, it's not just about looking at something and saying that it's beautiful. It could be looking at something and it has a special meaning to you. That could be considered beautiful. It might not look like it, but because of the value that it holds with you, you consider it beautiful. So I think it's based on an individual's values, but I define it as seeing things through your own lenses and placing your own value on it to determine that I think it's
Cool.
beautiful.
I got a question for you, OG. Um, what has shaped you, regardless of school, occupation, anything? What do you think, or in your opinion, what has shaped you the most in your life?
That's a great question. I appreciate that. So for me, uh, I think unequivocally it has been uh, having to navigate growing up in this world without my dad. I think bar none, that's the single most important thing or situation that helped shape who I became as a man. And it started from when I was a very young lad. I would tell you, I used to always think about, what would make my dad proud. Like, how would he want me to handle this? I mean, I literally thought about those things, and that became my ruling guide to how I tried to navigate the world and the things I chose to get involved in or not get involved in. I will tell you, it played a huge role in me staying out of trouble, for instance. And there was a lot of trouble to get into, especially, you know, watching it all around me in my days back in North Philadelphia. But I always thought about, how would my dad want me to navigate this? So that's been easily the biggest influence.
What do you consider to be your greatest accomplishment, either personal or professional?
Oh, uh, being a dad, uh, I would tell you, man, uh, all the things that I've done, could have done, should have done, uh, nothing is more gratifying than being given the responsibility of molding and shaping these lives. I mean, these are real human beings that you've been given charge to care for, and understanding early on, yeah, no instructions come with, you have to figure it out, uh, you know, and it really makes you stop, think, and consider most everything that you do. How's this going to impact my kids? You know, what would they be proud of? And I would just tell you, yeah, for me, that's easy, man. It's nothing like being a dad, and yeah, so that would be my answer for that.
And I'm going to ask Byron's first question. Let me see if I can ask it like Byron. So, yeah. So, Rod, if you were a political consultant, what advice would you give to both current candidates for president?
Wow, yeah. So if I was a political consultant for the Republican Party, uh, the advice I would give to their candidate is, you know, stop with the personal assaults, right? I mean, basically, I think that, in a lot of ways, they've turned, you know, this run for what people view as the most important, the most powerful office in the world, into a clown show, because you want to levy personal insults and personal attacks on individuals when you could easily discuss the things that interest the American people the most. But instead of doing that, uh, you levy personal insults. And then my advice would be, when you do that, people see that as a sign of weakness from you, because maybe you don't really have a plan. You just want to be in the seat. And then once you get in the seat, let other people kind of govern. And, for the other side, I think fundamentally on the Democratic side, I would say it doesn't matter whether you've changed your mind or taken a different position than you had 4 years ago or 8 years ago or 10 years ago. What matters is that you articulate that, and you do that by being transparent about it. We are not the same people today that we were 10 years ago. And if anyone would think that because I thought and felt a certain way 10 years ago and I feel differently now, that's normal growth in an individual. You've had a lot of experiences that could have helped change your mind or change the position that you might have had. But you have to be able to tell that story. Every time someone levies at you that you're week on the border, roll right into, we had a comprehensive border bill, bipartisan, that was agreed upon. Candidate on the other side said, don't support that, or I'm going to remember who you are. Because if you don't support it, then I can get to use it as fodder during the campaign to show how weak they are on the border. And the saddest part is that, I think that it then has the American people sitting around as pawns in the games that they play. And these are real people, real lives, real values. And then my other piece of advice would be, you know what? Go into the parts of the country where they don't expect you to go. Get to understand how people are living, what they value. Let them know how you're going to govern to support what some of those priorities might be. Don't be afraid of that. I think when you start humanizing people like that, it goes a long way. Otherwise, if all we're going to do, is throw salts at one another, I don't know, it just seems real petty. And that's unfortunate because there are a lot of real problems that need to be solved there. And to go back to the border one, I think the one that always escaped me is, and we've all experienced it. It's really about a process. You got a law, a policy in place. Okay, you do, or you don't. If you don't, you need one. Then once you do, now you got to make sure that processes are in place that ensures that that law or policy is being followed. Either it is or it isn't. It's not even rocket science. I think they find a way to complicate things that shouldn't be that complicated. It's not to say that the problems aren't complex, because they are. But it's to say that just because the problems are complex doesn't mean that all the smart people in the world, that we can't get minds, think tank, to come together and figure out how to solve them. Because we can, but everybody wants to win. And unfortunately, they all want to win at the expense of people that they don't necessarily value. And that, to me, is the unfortunate part. And I think that people in this country don't necessarily realize how much power that they hold collectively. We want to use our differences, to fight against one another, as opposed to using them to have a better understanding. And I always say, seek first to understand, then be understood. So we've all heard it, right? But we don't do it. We don't live that, because everybody wants to have their say. Everybody wants to win, and they want to win every time. And I think that the problems that we face, it cannot be about winning and losing necessarily. Despite the fundamental differences that we have, where we can find common ground, let's find it.
Kind of a two-part question. What's something you've done that's intimidated you but paid off in the end? And the second part to that is, in what ways did it intimidate you, and in what ways did it pay off?
It's probably a couple things. One is having kids. I'll tell you that. Yeah, that was pretty intimidating. I can't even lie. That was pretty intimidating. And I would tell you, for any man, and this is, any man that sits in a birthing room and watches their spouse or significant other give birth to a child that they help procreate and doesn't walk away with enormous respect for that woman, I don't even know who you are. You even human, dude? Because I would tell you, my first thing was that is not something I would do. I'm sorry. I
Right.
know that we weren't necessarily built for it, but just to see it, and the why, and I'm like, yeah, oh my goodness, that was, yeah. So I, so I think that was something that was very, very intimidating, and of course, it paid off, you know, by watching this person, this human being that you help procreate, grow up, and that's why to me it's so important as dads, as fathers, that we be present. You know, women don't make babies by themselves. So why do we force them to raise the kid by themselves for whatever selfish reason that you have? And I would tell any man, no matter what, if you are going to engage in acts that create other human beings, please be responsible with it. That's not a game to be played, you know. And we have to start valuing our women more as men. I'm just firmly believe that, and I hear people say, well, she this or she that. Well, you know what? Then my question is, well, have you sat down and provided her any type of vision for what you want y'all's life together to be like? Have you taken her off the defense? Right? Yeah, maybe she, you know, had a bad relationship before. We all have trauma and excuse me, and baggage that we bring into a new relationship or situation. Yeah, that's fine. What do we need to do to take people off the defense and say, you know what? Hey, together, if we do this together, we can be great. We can do anything we want to do. But it requires commitment. And I will tell you, I think that in and of itself is one thing that we don't talk about enough in our communities and amongst men that we should talk about. That makes a huge difference in how you move and operate. But do we teach our young men about being committed? Finish what you start. If you're going to do it all the way. Sound good. But who's actually there to make them follow through with that? Oh, the single moms that's raising them? Yeah, it might go off well a little while till they become 6'4", 240. Now, unless you're just willing to put them down, what can you do? The absence of man in the house. They want to talk about epidemics in this country. They should start with that one. They really should. So that's one. Uh, and then the other was really the decision I made to join the military. I didn't see it as such necessarily at the time. But as I look back, I mean, it absolutely It absolutely was, fairly intimidating. And I think because, I was always pretty quiet, right? It didn't mean I was weak. Some people, unfortunately, mistaken that. But that's not what it meant. It meant that I really believe I was just on a journey in life to want to have peace in any situation. And so joining the military for me really it helped me grow, made me grow in ways that I don't know that I would have necessarily, because it challenged me, to come out of my shell. I mean, I fell right into the BMT at Lackland, and TI's like, hey, Hector, uh, you're the dorm chief, and I better not have to fire you. Like, dude, what? Okay, you know. And at that point, it really gave me an opportunity and insight into what it really took uh, to build a team of individuals that come from every walk of life. They all have their own reasons for being there at that place at that time. And we have to find a way to come together to function as a cohesive team. From the marching, I can't tell you how much time, you know, I spent marching with people and trying to get them to stop bouncing. I'm like, yeah, dude. You can't see it necessarily now, but when you put the entire flight in formation, yeah, you look like one of those dolls going up and down. I'm like, man, the shoulders back, man. Walk with some pride, you know. But yeah, that was the opportunity, man, for me to grow. And I would tell you, one of the ways that I knew that I had kind of turned the corner on at least that situation uh, was that while I was in basic training, I'm sure everyone probably remembers where they were when the full layout uh, of Vanessa Williams came out. And hey man, I remember, so of course then we were all going to the shaving clinic. And I remember going to the shaving clinic and sitting in there waiting my turn. We're all sitting around the table there and waiting, and it was kind of relaxed in there. The TIs that ran the shaving clinic, they were cool as the other side of the pillow. We're sitting in there, and these guys are losing their mind. They're like, oh, Hector, Dorm Chief, check this out. The Vanessa Williams spread is out, and they're letting us see it. And I remember saying, nah, man, I'm good. I felt like my TI could see me from across base. I'm like, no, y'all go ahead. I'm good. I'm good. Plus, y'all already been locked away. I think we've been locked away for 4 weeks at that time. And I'm like, dude, y'all probably losing y'all mind in there. I said, it said you got to leave here and go back and look at these dudes. I'm like, man, nah, I'm good. I'm already in a good mental place. Let me stay there. But for me, it kind of showed, some growth on my part individually. But it also gave me some insight into uh, how important it is, to try and function as a team, and the complexities that go along with that. And we had a gentleman in our flight, that's not necessarily on suicide watch, but he was struggling, and just the amount of empathy that it took to really let them know that, yeah, I'm not like you in a lot of ways, but we're both human. You know, we have someone in the world who loves us. Sure, you love someone. You know, this thing we're going through is just temporary. And the cool thing is we get to go through it together and support one another through it. Let's just do that. It's not a year, it's 6 weeks, you know. But I think just the idea that someone cared enough to take the time to have that conversation makes all the difference in the world to some people, you know. So it really did. And and I've often talked about the young lady I met from Iowa who grew up on a farm. And I was the first Black person that she had ever had a conversation with. Now think about it. We're 20, 19 years old. It's the first time she's had a conversation with a Black person. Like, oh, Hector, you're cool. It's like you kind of want the same things in life that I do. Like, yeah, we just grew up differently. Doesn't change our humanness. And that's the thing, man. Instead of, believing what you hear, get to know people, get to understand them, different or not, you know. I find it intriguing to meet people that are totally different from me, to understand, what they value and why. Oh, I loved it. So yeah, so those two things were are the long answer to the short question. That's it.
You really kind of got into my question with them answers, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. You have a chance to sit down with 18-year-old Rod. What are three foundational pieces of advice? Not anything that would like give you a cheat code on the trajectory of your life, but three foundational things that you would share with the 18-year-old version of yourself.
Wow, that's a great question. 18-year-old. Uh, it would be uh, always be a leader. Uh, realizing that you always have to give an account for the choices you make, and yeah, you can't put that off on anyone else. So always be a leader. uh, the second piece would be lean on your faith and your values that brought you to this point. Because there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of things that will distract you in the world. But if you continue to lean on your faith and your values and those things that will pour it into you, then you're going to be all right. And then the last thing would be, aside from your personality or what you think your personality might be, don't be afraid to take risks. I honestly believe I was the most risk averse person walking the face of the earth, and after growing and learning some things, I realized that, you have to take risks, calculated or otherwise, uh, you come this way one time. You don't ever want to wonder what if. And some of us might not wonder what if, but there are a lot of people that do. What if? What if I had made this choice instead of that one? And so for me, it's yeah, take risks. So always be a leader, lean on your faith, and your values, and embrace and lean into taking risks.
Is what is the most meaningful gift you've ever received?
The most meaningful gift I've ever received. Uh, it was watching the birth of my son. Uh, yeah, that that was it for me. I mean that changed me in ways that I could not even imagine. You know, uh, yeah, dude, that's I was hoping not to get one of those kind of questions, but I feel differently about it now than when I answered it earlier. But yeah, but as far as meaningful gifts, man, it was that, you know, and then just them watching, and being able to watch, you know, grow and develop, you know, figure out and develop his own personality. Yeah, that's why I don't understand how men could not be present in the lives of their kids, man. I don't care what else is going on in the world, you know. And and if you decided that you and the mom can't fit anymore as a couple, and you decide to go a different path, don't let anything get in the way of you being there for your kid. If you're with someone that doesn't appreciate that characteristic and trait within you, they're not the one for you. They're just not, man. There's no greater gift, you know. And then the sad part is that, the cycle can be so damaging and it just keeps repeating itself over and over again. Because those kids, they're going to grow no matter whether you're there or not into something, but not being there to help shape and mold what that becomes, you know. Uh, then you want to show up, 15, 20 years later, when they're about to sign a contract or whatever the case might be, now that's my son, or that's my daughter. Oh, but you weren't there, You turned yourself into a sperm donor, you know, and that's the unfortunate part. So yeah, man, that's the greatest gift, and one that definitely changed me.
So our last question comes from B. If money was not an issue, what ideal business would you start that would enhance the Black community?
Hmm. If money was not an issue, what's the ideal business that I would start? Uh, I think it would be a series of businesses, not just one per se. But that was the question. One. Uh, but well, I'll say it. I'll answer it this way. So I think that the business would definitely center around uh, people supporting one another uh, And and I always think back to Black Wall Street and how we were, really subjected to needing to do that. You know, to be able to display our education, our ingenuity, our business acumen. Uh, so I think that it would definitely surround supporting one another and uh, keeping a dollar circulating to the benefit of the Black family, especially. So I think it would have something to do with uh, training and teaching men uh, the importance of just being present and being available, uh, both physically, uh, emotionally, spiritually, uh, for their queens and their kids. Because I would love to see what uh, what a situation, a sustained situation like that, uh, really look like. You know, for the community of Black people. When you look at all the things that we've invented, all the things that we've done, you know, it's some pretty powerful stuff. I mean, I know that people look at uh, President Carter and the renowned as a peanut farmer, but they don't know that the Black man is the one that revolutionized that industry. So, so yeah, it would center around a business that supported uh, strengthening and empowering Black families.
Man, good stuff from my elder statesman, as we knew it would be, without a doubt. And
Oh
with that, oh, go ahead.
no, I was just saying, I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, yeah, this was cool. Really made me think about some things. So I got some work to do. But anyway, thanks,
That was
man.
good stuff, man. Good stuff for sure. And with that, we want to thank each of you for taking the time to join us. As we wrap up this week's episode, we want to leave you with a quote that really speaks to something that Brother Rod was talking about when he said that, we only get, life is short and we only get one attempt at this thing. So the quote comes from poet, essayist, and naturalist Diane Ackerman, who said, I don't want to get to the end of my life and find that I've just lived the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it as well. And then I would personally add the depth also. We hope that you're living every inch of your life. And until next time, peace.